Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Welcome to the University of Southampton School of Psychology podcast. My name is Jacob Jewell. I'm an associate professor of psychology at the University of Southampton, and this is the podcast where we take a look at the people within the School of Psychology at the University of Southampton. Specifically, we're going to learn about the educational and career pathways of professors, lecturers, students, as well as alumni. And I hope we don't just learn about these individuals. I hope we can also learn from their experiences pursuing their education and careers. So let me introduce today's guest, Laura Smith. One reason why I've asked Laura to come on the podcast is that she's completed all her higher education in psychology at the University of Southampton. This includes her undergraduate and master's degrees, and she's very nearly finished with her PhD. She is now moving on to becoming a lecturer in psychology at Calywith College in Bodmin. Now, another reason that I wanted her to come on the podcast is that she has been heavily involved in several extracurricular activities as a student, and this includes representing her fellow students to the School of Psychology. I suspect that all of this has given her a particularly unique insight into the student experience that she can share with us. So let's get started. Laura Smith, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
So what I want to do is I just kind of want to talk through your educational pathway and hope that others can learn from it. So could you just very quickly go through your education up through your A-levels for us?
Yeah, of course. So I come from a tiny little village in Essex called Sybil Hedingham. I went to primary school there just down the road. It was like a 10-minute walk. It was fantastic. And as everyone else in my village does, I went to Hedingham School and Sixth Form afterwards. So my secondary school was Hedingham School and Sixth Form. My sixth form was Hedingham School and Sixth Form. And then after A-levels, obviously made the decision to come to university.
Okay. And what were the subjects you chose for your A-levels?
So I knew very early on that I wanted to do psychology at A-level. So all of my A-levels were kind of geared towards that. I chose psychology, obviously, English literature for the essay writing, and biology for a bit more of the mathsy, but also just the biological processes of what it means to be a human.
Okay, so when you say you knew very early on that you were going to choose psychology, does that mean you also knew that you were going to go on to do that at university, or were you open to other pathways, or what was your thinking going into A-levels?
I was open to other pathways, but I think I've always been a people person. And I've always loved people, understanding people, listening to people, just learning about their journeys. And I think from a very early age, from probably about as young as 13, 14, when you learn what psychology as a subject is, it was like, that's something I'd really like to do. So yeah, I knew quite early on.
Okay, yeah, that is early to know. When was it during A-levels that you knew for sure that you're going to apply to psychology undergraduate courses?
Again, pretty early on. I think after the first term of doing psychology, it was like, yeah, this is something I can really see myself doing for, as long as I want to. I just love people, and I love learning about people, and everything is people, really. Everything comes back to, being a human or interacting with humans.
Being interested in people, psychology is an obvious choice. The degree is going to be quite useful or quite interesting to you. But did you have a particular career in psychology in mind before you went to university?
Not at all at that time, no. I think for me, I was following what I knew I really enjoyed, and where I really loved psychology. I really loved learning about people. I was like, I'd like to learn about this and, figure it out a bit more, but I didn't have a clue about what I wanted to do before I came to university.
Were you aware of potential options that you could do with a psychology degree?
In terms of the stereotypes, definitely. So I was aware of being a therapist, being a counsellor, being a clinical psychologist, but I think there wasn't as much understanding about all the different areas in psychology. So I didn't know about developmental, I didn't know about health psychology, I didn't know about cognitive. I very much had the basic clinical or therapy essentially in my brain, but I knew there was going to be other fun things you could do with it, and it was a part of my journey to figure that out.
Was there anything in particular about the University of Southampton that made you choose to come here?
So one thing I really enjoyed was the variety of optional modules available. I was looking at all the different modules that you'd have to do as an undergraduate. And one that really stood out to me was actually psychology of attractiveness that I did in my first year. Yeah. And I remember seeing that module and thinking, that's really cool. And also really useful knowledge that could be immediately applied to, life and relationships.
Yeah, your own life.
Yeah, exactly. So it was something that I really liked the course. I really liked the freedom in the final year to just pick out of so many different options. And also as well, in doing A-levels, I learnt about the European and Romanian adoptee study. And in that, Jana Krepner was part of it, and she was a lecturer at psychology. So it was like, wow, this is clearly a great place to go because they've got all the best researchers. And that's kind of what made my decision.
No, that makes sense. And just to say, for those of you who listen to the podcast with Claire Hart, the Psychology of Attractiveness module is the one that Claire spoke about, the one that she teaches. Okay, so during your undergraduate career, was there a point where you solidified the career you wanted to go after?
So undergraduate was a really good way to get an idea of all the different areas of psychology that existed. And in my logic, it was, I'm going to try everything. And if I don't like it, I know I don't want to do it. If I do like it, that's great. And, that's a potential. So throughout my undergraduate, I did lots of the voluntary internships. They were called voluntary research assistant placements at the time.
Yep.
So I did ones in health, in cognitive, in clinical, in social psychology, all different areas, just to see what I enjoyed and what I didn't. And it was actually, again, during that Psychology of Attractiveness module where I saw Claire up there, saw how cool she was with her little kickboxing medals. And I was like, wow, this is really something I can see myself doing. And it's something I feel like I have a personal connection and calling to.
Okay, so you really took inspiration from Claire and looked up to her as a role model, I guess?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd started mixed martial arts the week before starting the module. And then when she pulled out the kickboxing medals, I was like, oh, it just solidifies for me.
Oh, that's great. So you saw yourself one day being a lecturer.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always loved public speaking. So to be up there in front of so many people and to be able to shape their education, inform them about all these cool theories and pieces of knowledge and nuggets of wisdom that exist about what it means to be human and to exist as a human. That's really something that I have a really personal resonation with.
So you mentioned all of the internship placements that you had, the voluntary internship placements, and we can go back and talk about those. But was there anything in particular that you did during your undergraduate career to pursue that specific career?
Yeah, so I think the moment I figured out education was something for me, I decided to work as a part-time kind of ad hoc tutor for A-level psychology and English literature.
Okay.
I worked with mytutor.com, so I did online tutoring sessions, and then I would also recruit within the local community as well if there was anyone who needed tutoring. So it was a good first step into education, and I was just fresh out of A-levels and had done pretty well. So I was like, this is something, it's quite easy and, it's a good way to make some money on the side.
Was there anything that you learned from that experience about teaching that you probably wouldn't have been able to learn otherwise?
I do feel like the hands-on approach to actually being able to teach someone, it really showed me the differences in how everybody interprets the same words and how different needs require different approaches. So I had a student who had dyslexia, and they found it really difficult to read and understand the questions and know what they were asking. So that's when you kind of take a more specialized approach of how do I deal with this for this specific student, which was quite a valuable thing to learn and is something I've taken with me throughout my educational career, just to really be sensitive to what it is this student needs to hear and how they would best hear it.
I want to go back. You talked about the voluntary internship placements that you did. Can I ask, when was the first time that you did that?
So the first time I was available to do it was in the first summer after my first year.
Yep.
And I did a 4 to 6 week placement in health psychology. So I worked on a project with looking at, I think it was digital interventions to eczema.
Okay.
And then it was also interventions to asthma, getting people to actually use and properly use the different treatments, as it were.
Okay.
And part of that placement, I was entering data. I was transcribing it from physical documents to online. I also got experience testing websites and bug testing, where you have to click on all the different features and go to different pathways and see if it's going to crash the website or see if it takes you some weird place. All sorts of stuff, really. It was my first kind of role working in a research group and seeing what it actually means day to day to be involved in research.
Yeah. And who did you work with?
I worked with Katie Sivia and Kate Greenwell.
So you did that first placement. It sounds like you had an overall positive experience.
Yeah, yeah.
And you mentioned that you had several other ones. So I'm guessing you did it each summer.
Each summer, but also throughout the semester as well. So in year 2, they allow you to do a placement during the
semester.
Yeah, during the semesters.
Yeah,
so
okay.
I would do like one in semester 1, one in semester 2, one in summer, and just did that on and on throughout the degree.
Okay. Looking back at all of those voluntary internship experiences, collectively, what were some of the skills, I guess, that you felt that you had because you did those things?
Oh, it really set me up with an advantage when it came to final year. I'd already had that face-to-face dealing with participants in a professional manner, talking people through participant information sheets, giving consent forms, paying people for their time. I'd been involved in systematic searches for systematic reviews and meta-analyses. I'd already had so much experience. It gave me such a breadth of experience when it comes to research that really put me at an edge when it came to the final year when you do your own research project, because all of a sudden it was like, oh, I can do a systematic review and I can collect data in person, and this is something I'm comfortable with and confident in. It was really fantastic. So I highly recommend, if anybody is remotely nervous about research methods, do a research internship before, and you'll have somebody there to talk you through it and guide you through the process of what it means to do research.
And it's also not like a high stakes. I mean, obviously you need to engage professionally.
Of course.
But you're not being marked on it, for example. It's not like a timed exam.
Exactly.
So yeah, it's a different way to, I guess, gain knowledge and experience about psychology and how the work of psychology is done.
I think as well, it's really valuable as an individual, because you can see, is this an area that I would like to do research in? And for me, when I was doing cognitive research, I was like, actually, this isn't really my interest. It's not people focused enough. So I think it really helps you gain an understanding of where within psychology is it that you actually feel like you fit.
That's interesting, because when I used to run that scheme, I would meet with those who participated at the end of the academic year. And I would ask them, how many of you, because of your experience, now want to pursue a career in research, and see how many would raise their hands? And how many of you know that you now don't want to pursue a career in research? And I would really encourage them to think about that as still a learning experience, because they know not necessarily exactly what they want to do, but something that they don't want to do, so they can check one thing off.
The process of elimination is so invaluable when it comes to, that was kind of also what informed my decision to do psychology, because I knew I didn't want to do anything maths related. I didn't want to do physics or chemistry. So if you know what you don't want to do, you're already guided towards more of the things that you enjoy.
You mentioned just there, you didn't want to do anything that was maths focused. So what was your mindset? So part of an undergraduate psychology degree, and definitely postgraduate work and work as lecturers, researchers, you do have to know how to do statistics. What was someone who didn't want to do mathematics, what was your mindset going into it, and how did that play out for you?
So I think a lot of people come to university with a bit of an apprehension when it comes to maths and when it comes to research methods. We hear about it a lot. It is intimidating as well if you don't necessarily know what you're doing, or if numbers aren't really your strong suit. I was always more essay focused and essay based. Okay. I love writing things, but when it came to numbers, I just wasn't as confident and I didn't feel as capable. So coming to university, I had an open mind, obviously, but I think you do carry with you those sort of subconscious biases against, research methods, you kind of bristle at it a bit. When it actually came to learning about it, I think I had Sylvia in my first year, and she made it so accessible. All of the different formulas would be explained. And as long as you were paying attention and following along, when she eventually flicked through to the slide where it was all of the different symbols in the formula, you actually could break it down and understand it. So it became less scary as the years went on, for sure.
Okay. And upon finishing your undergraduate degree, what was did you have more confidence approaching your postgraduate work with what you did in an undergraduate degree? Or did you learn that actually you're good at mathematics? Did you come to that conclusion?
At the end of the degree, I really felt so much more confident and so much more just capable when it came to research methods, to the point where I decided to do my master's in research methods in psychology.
Yeah.
That was kind of a dual purpose, essentially, because I knew I wanted to do a PhD. And in my eyes, it was easier to do a master's in research methods and have somebody teach me all of the really complex statistical skills I was going to need to know compared to learning it all myself in the PhD. So it was kind of in preparation, but it was also because of that confidence that I'd gained and because of those skills that I'd learned, I felt able to do it.
Okay, so I do want to talk a little bit more about what you did during your master's. But before we get there, your undergraduate degree, can you say a little bit about your final year project? What was it on? Who did you work with?
So for my final year, it was split into two separate assignments. So the first one was a literature review, and the second one was the actual empirical project. For my literature review, where I gained those systematic review skills from my VI placements, I did a systematic review on literature about the impact of volunteering on the actual volunteers in vulnerable populations or complex needs populations. Okay. So it was looking at peer supporters in homelessness and what they kind of gain from, it wasn't necessarily constrained to peer supporters in homelessness, but working with complex needs, complex, vulnerable populations, people with disabilities, people with substance misuse conditions, things like that. So it was kind of the first investigation in terms of what do we actually know about what these volunteers get out of the services they provide for people. And there was only 9 papers on actually that subject. So it's a really under-researched area, which I found really interesting. And that kind of informed my empirical project, which was looking at the outcomes for peer supporters in homelessness. So a peer supporter is somebody who was previously homeless and, has since worked their way through and is settled, has a house, and they decide to help people who are currently experiencing homelessness. Naturally, within the homeless population, there is a lot of really complex needs, a lot of substance misuse, a lot of domestic violence, a lot of, just really horrible mental health things that people go through. And what do the people that volunteer with these populations get out of it? Is it good for them? Is it bad for them? Is it draining? Does it give them energy and give them hope? Yeah. So that was essentially what my third year project was looking at.
And so you continue to do your education here at Southampton. You went on to the Research Methods MSc. Did you continue that work or did you shift onto something else for your dissertation, for your master's?
Yeah, within my MSc, at my third year, I'd done a module on childhood maltreatment and mental health. And that was with Dennis and Jana. Well, Dr. Dennis Gulm and Professor Jana Krepner, but I know them as Dennis and Jana because they're my supervisors.
Yep.
So I decided to work with them looking at the association between childhood maltreatment and empathy. So does it increase our empathy? Does it decrease our empathy? There was not really a lot of research at the time. This is back in 2020, 2021. There wasn't really a lot of research at the time on that. So it was a really interesting investigation, and working within the maltreatment population is something that I was able to carry forward into my PhD as well.
And so you did your PhD with both Jana and Dennis as well? Mm-hmm. Okay. The big question that a lot of people have moving from their MSc to a PhD is, how are they going to get funding to do it? Was there some uncertainty for you? Were you able to secure it at the beginning of your MSc? What was that process like for you?
So in terms of the process, I was very fortunate in that I think for a lot of people, you see a PhD advertised, you apply for it, and, it's kind of there already for you. But where I was working with Dennis and Jana, we managed to put together a proposal for a PhD project. Okay. And we worked together to propose it to the South Coast Doctoral Training Partnership, also called the SCDTP. There is essentially funding bodies for different areas of the UK. And obviously you apply to the different funding body for the institution you'd like to go for. I unfortunately didn't get funding from the SCDTP. Okay. I was on their reserve list.
All right.
But luckily the University of Southampton stepped forward and said, this is something we would like to support you with. And, they proposed the Mayflower Scholarship, which is what I'm still doing now.
And so now you're about to finish, is that correct? Yeah?
Wrapping it up, kind of. Still doing it, but getting there.
Okay. But you're starting a new job soon,
yes.
Correct? Can you tell us about that?
So I will actually be starting work part-time as a lecturer in psychology at Callyworth College in Bodmin. It's quite exciting. It's a place I feel a very strong connection to personally, and they do wonderful stuff with their students. It's fantastic educationally.
Can you say a little bit more about the personal connection that you have?
As I said earlier, I'm very much a people person, and I'm very driven to community. I'm very attracted to that kind of sense of, everyone knows everyone takes care of everyone, everybody looks out for everyone. It's something I found here at Southampton, and it's something I was very sad to be leaving, obviously, because it's been a big part of my life for, 8 years now? And it's quite a rare thing, I think, to find nowadays. Lots of companies, everything feels so far removed from the actual people behind the screens. Yep. Whereas, Callyworth, they do phenomenal work with their students. They're like the leading post-16s education across the UK, not just in Cornwall. I think it's the freedom to innovate educationally, to not be constrained by somewhat outdated models of what it means to teach someone something. We should be facilitating learning, not telling them what to think.
Yeah.
And that approach is something that I really like. I think that's the way that I'd like to conduct myself and the way I'd like to be.
Do you know yet exactly what you'll be teaching?
At psychology A-level. So I'll be teaching first year psychology A-level. So it will be things on social influence, all sorts of like research methods, different projects.
It'd be very broad then.
Yeah, very broad.
That's great. All right, so I want to go back now to your undergraduate degree. We focused mostly just on your studies so far. But another thing that students do at university, or a lot of students do at university, is join different clubs or societies on campus. Did you have any involvement in those?
There were so many clubs on offer, and anything that sounded interesting, it was like, yeah, I'll do that. So I tried like surfing, I tried skydiving,
Wow.
I did beekeeping for a bit. My one that I really found and like stuck with was mixed martial arts though. That was like my baby almost.
Did you start that for the first time at university?
Yeah, so I came to university wanting to start a martial art. I'd done karate a few years before, but in my opinion, it wasn't very good for self-defense. So it was like, I want to do a martial art that is going to prepare me, you know, in case of emergency kind of thing, just to know I can handle myself. Being a really small, like 5'4" woman,
Okay.
like it's good to feel safe. So I did like a taster for all of the different martial arts societies, and then mixed martial arts was like, I can see this one. Like, this is my one. So yeah.
So I know nothing about martial arts. Did you have competitions with other universities or other organizations?
Yeah. There were lots of, it's called an interclub. And we would arrange. So I was actually the first female president of MMA in my final year, which I was very, very proud of. Yeah. That's like my claim to fame, my legacy for the society is the first female president. But I arranged what was called the Southampton Showdown. And that was a like huge fight night that had, I think there were only over 250 people who came to watch. It was really exciting. And it was so cool to be part of something like that, to be able to create that from nothing. You know,
Yeah.
I'd come from this first year student who didn't really know where she was going or what she was doing. And all of a sudden I'd arranged this huge event and like, it was really greatly attended. We sold t-shirts. Like, it was so cool.
That's great leadership experience as well. So I know something else that you did while you were an undergraduate student, and maybe you did some of this as well during your postgraduate work, but I think in your first year, you started off by being a course rep for just the first year students.
Yeah, so course representative is at like the year level. So the year one course rep is for the year ones, year two course rep for the year twos, year three for the year threes, and so on.
What led you in your first year to decide, hey, let's give this a try?
I've always kind of been drawn to those kind of roles where, you know, you can be in leadership and you can have an impact on those communities. I was like head girl in my sixth form, obviously a prefect, such a keen bean looking back at it now, which is not a bad thing.
No, we need those people.
Yeah, no, exactly. So coming to university, I saw the course rep being advertised in one of the first lectures and was like, that's something I'll put myself forward for. And, you know, got the role, really loved it, really enjoyed representing just my peers and taking any concerns or complaints they may have had, different questions and things. It was nice to be the person that people come to when they need to know where to go, if that makes sense. It's nice to be able to direct people to different services and to just say, hey, like, you know, if you'd like to learn a bit more about how to write essays, the library offer all of these workshops and stuff. And in being that person for other people, you learn so much so quickly about, you know, where things are, how to access different things. Yeah, like it was really good for me just to kind of get myself oriented at university as well, because I was suddenly the person that people were coming to if they didn't know where to go. So I would find it out for them, and then I would also know.
You mentioned a lot that you did in that role. Can you talk about anything concrete that you did? Like, were you just a person that students could go to over email to respond, or were there specific meetings that you attended or events that you organized? Yeah,
so most of the role of a course representative is attending student staff liaison committees. They're essentially meetings, I think it's every term, so you have 3 in a year, and you sit down, you talk about all the different modules, how things are going, if there's any concerns or any kind of complaints with the school board. So it would be the director of undergraduate programs, representatives from like the library and iSolutions and all sorts.
Okay, yep.
Everyone from across the board, essentially.
Yeah, so largely your instructors, some of your instructors.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. And so you continue to do this role in your second year, is that correct?
Yeah, so I really enjoyed just being that person for people and popping up in lectures to say, hey, if anyone needs to like chat to someone or know where to go, just like, you know, send me an email, come say hi in a lecture. So I did that again in my second year. And that was kind of gearing me up to, in my third year, becoming the academic president for the students.
And that was for basically all years as well.
Yeah, representing like all years across psychology.
Okay, as an academic president, what did you do above and beyond what just the year representatives did?
Yeah, so the main difference is you also attend what's called a School Programs Committee, or SPC. So that is where you represent the undergraduate degree as a whole. And that's in a meeting talking about the masters, talking about the declins, the PhDs. That's all programs across the school. So it was really interesting to get to learn so much about the processes and to be part of those meetings. Because I think when you're a student, things just kind of happen. The school just exists around you, which is great and is fine. But actually understanding the inner workings, it was like, whoa, like this is so cool. And there's so many different processes in place, so many different procedures and stuff. It was probably my first proper exploration into that kind of more higher management level.
Was there anything from your 3 years of representing your peers that resulted in changes or resulted in, well, I should say, that produced any results at all that you're proud of?
Yeah, I mean, we're very lucky in psychology that the staff really listen to student feedback and they really take on board what people are saying. So much so, after I did my voluntary internship in health psychology, we'd spoken to a lot of my peers and I kind of said, this is a cool thing that we don't really learn about in the undergrad programs. And the general consensus was people would like a health psychology module offered and then also a mental health psychology module offered as well. So we kind of took that to the school and said, these are things people think would be handy in year one to give them a bit of a better idea of the scope of psychology. Is this something you could do? And a few years later, or I think it was literally the next year, they had Introduction to Mental Health with Emma Palmer Cooper.
Wow.
And health psychology module. So pretty instant changes. Obviously, you personally don't get to see the changes that come in. They come in for the year after because there needs to be time to set things up. But it was really refreshing and encouraging to see student feedback being taken on board so quickly and so eagerly.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that both of those were as a result from feedback from students.
Yeah.
So
now you know.
So as if being year representatives and academic course president wasn't enough already, halfway through your final year, you stepped it up another level, didn't you?
Yeah, so kind of above the school level of representation. So you have course reps at the bottom of the pyramid, then it goes to academic presidents, and then one step up from that is faculty representatives. So they would represent an entire faculty. So our faculty, psychology, sits within the Faculty of Environmental and Life Sciences, also called FELS for short. So I'm just going to call it FELS because that's way less wordy. I was the FELS representative for the second half of my final year, which just so happened to be 2020, January to July.
Yeah, the COVID pandemic.
Yes.
So I guess that brought probably additional challenges to both of those roles at the school level and faculty level.
Absolutely.
Do you have any advice for a new representative about how to best go about communicating with staff and giving feedback, translating what other students are saying and giving that over to the staff?
Yeah, it is a skill that you learn over time for sure. And I would really encourage anyone who is even thinking about going for a course rep role to really go for it. I mean, there's also 3 socials a year where you get free food, which was a big motivator for me. So that was, great fun. And you get to meet other people from, all sorts of degrees and courses that I didn't even know existed. Zoology. I didn't know we had one of those.
Okay.
So I would say definitely get involved if you can. When it comes to communicating, I think just being constructive and, maybe if somebody comes to you with negative feedback, phrasing it as an opportunity rather than, you're not doing this or so-and-so needs to do that. Just remaining professional, keeping things positive wherever possible and saying, we appreciate that you're doing X, Y, Z, but maybe students would receive it better if it was, WXZ, So phrasing things in a different way is very useful. And I do feel just a general sense of being able to understand people and understand where they're coming from is very, very helpful when it comes to being a course representative. But again, it's a skill that you learn throughout your time in that role. So if you are thinking of applying for it and you maybe think, I don't really have those skills, I'd say just give it a go. And you learn the skills along the way. You manage and you cope and then you grow from that.
Did you take on any similar leadership roles when you're doing your postgraduate work?
In my role as course rep and academic president, I was really involved in the wider community. So arranging festive events, Christmas stuff, different little get-togethers for people to kind of give students a chance to meet other people. And it's something I carried forward into my PhD as well. So I did a year's work as a postgraduate teaching assistant, working on different modules. And then after that first year, Hayward started as the director of undergraduate programs. And then he offered me the role of the undergraduate community tutor, which would mean I'm essentially coordinating all of those events, helping provide spaces for students to meet other people.
Can you say a little bit more about what that role entailed?
It would be arranging fun and also informative events. So we did Friends and Family Careers Day, where we brought back a bunch of alumni to come and speak to students about their current role. We've done film screenings. We watched Shutter Island because that's quite a good psychological one.
Yeah.
That was great. There was a big debate between a ufologist and a UFO experiencer and an anomalistic psychologist, somebody who researches the paranormal.
Yep.
That was really greatly attended. There was 170 people there. It was a big professor and a big published name in the ufology scene.
Okay.
So much fun. We've just done picnics. We've done bingo. We've done festive events. We've done Lunar New Year. So many cool little things just to kind of get students into campus and to give them something to come and get involved in the wider community with.
It's a good way, to, I guess, weave a social life into your work at university.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was so fun to just meet so many students from all sorts of backgrounds, and it's really nice to see that the first years they come and they maybe have one or two friends. And then by the end of it, there's a big group of them that have all made friends throughout the events. There's also always free pizza. So I've had my fill of Domino's over the past 3 years, which has been really amazing. And yeah, it's just great fun to kind of have that in-person community and have it really come back, especially after COVID when everything had to go online. So yeah, it's been great fun over the past 3 years. And honestly, it's been something that I'm so, so proud of. We set up the community Instagram as well, where we advertise all sorts of stuff. It's nice to have somewhere to see everything that we've done. And I always feel like the undergrad community, it will be like my little baby. But it is time to let my baby grow up and, go to somebody else. So Emily Penny will be the next undergrad community tutor next year.
Looking at all you did, a skill you must have is time management.
You'd be surprised.
I mean, just doing your degree is enough in and of itself. That requires tricky time management skills.
Yeah.
But doing the societies that you did, the course representative work that you did, do you have any tips or advice on time management that would be good for undergraduates to hear?
So one thing I did that I would tell, and I tell any single student I encounter, you should do this. If you do anything, do this one thing. It's know when your deadlines are and what modules they're for. Because if you don't know when the deadlines are coming up, all of a sudden, it's a few days before and everyone on the course group chat is talking about this assignment and you're like, what assignment? So just knowing when your assignments are and also setting a reminder, a month in advance to say, hey, start work on this module is one of the best things that I did. At the beginning of every year, I would sit down with my calendar. I had one of those huge A3 kind of size ones. And I would write out the deadline and the module. And then I would write a week reminder and a 2-week reminder. Just doing that keeps you so on top of everything. Also going to lectures and structuring your life around lectures and just being in the lecture, writing notes physically. It helps your brain process it. It helps you retain it more. And it does just prepare you. You'd be surprised the amount of information you can retain just by sitting in a lecture, paying attention and writing down notes instead of sitting on your phone and shopping, which it was always fun seeing people do when they had their laptops up and it was just online shopping. No judgment here, but coming to lectures and having an idea of when all your lectures are each week and when each deadline for each module is, it makes honestly the world of difference. I do think as well, one thing we don't talk about enough is having fun things to reward you for doing the less fun things.
Okay, yeah.
So for me, mixed martial arts was my reward. So obviously on a Monday, if you'd have a lecture, I'd have MMA 5 till 7 or 3 till 5. And just structuring your life around the essentials, the things you need to do, and the fun things, the things you want to do. It just makes things feel so much easier and so much better. And then lastly, my final tip would be scheduling time to do life stuff. So meal prepping, that was something that saved me the world of time. I would cook 2 or 3 meals on a Sunday.
Okay.
I also hated washing up. So it was great for me because it meant all my washing up was on a Sunday. Yeah. And then all my meals were in these neat little containers that I just put in the microwave and ate. And then I washed the container up. So useful.
That's all great stuff. I'm just curious, was that what you did from day one of your undergraduate, or did you kind of have to tinker around, or did you maybe learn after the first semester, okay, I have to put these dates in my diary?
So I put the dates in my diary from the get-go, but I didn't put the reminders in. And that is kind of one thing I learned after the first semester. It was to put reminders literally in my phone calendar so that you'd be on your phone on a random, Wednesday, and then you get an alert saying in 2 weeks' time you have this assignment due. That was something I did learn through trial and error, because I think if I can't see it, it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So making sure you can see it, putting sticky notes on your laptop, of important dates or different things like that, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's consistent with the advice that I give my first year tuties every year, is put all those dates in your diary. It helps you identify if there's going to be tricky parts of the semester.
Yes.
So if there's 2 deadlines for 2 different modules, 2 days apart, well, then you know that you're going to have to do most of the work for at least one of those a few weeks in advance.
Yeah, definitely. You'd be surprised that just putting things down somewhere, it makes it feel less stressful because there's less things you're trying to keep in your brain.
Yeah.
So just having it written out, it takes that mental load off, and then it feels less overwhelming because you're not trying to remember 4 different assignment deadlines for 4 different modules. All of a sudden it's there. You don't need to worry. You can kick back, relax, and just do what you need to do.
This is all good information about strategies for doing well as an undergraduate, but you've pretty much gotten to the end of your postgraduate work as well. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I guess we might have some undergraduate students who are thinking about doing postgraduate work.
Yeah.
Is there any wisdom that you could impart that would have been really helpful for you as an undergraduate making that decision to go on and do postgraduate work?
The biggest thing that I really wish I knew, because then I wouldn't have my postgraduate loan. I didn't know that a 1+3 or a 3+1 PhD existed. So I had no clue that you could get your master's funded.
Okay.
And if I knew about that, I would have been looking into PhDs at the end of my 3rd year. But I kind of just thought, well, you do your undergrad, you do your master's, and then you do the PhD. But they actually offer a 1+3 is you get funding for the 1 year of the master's plus 3 years of the PhD. And they're usually funded through the regulating body. So the SCDTP that I mentioned earlier. I wish I knew about that. I really wish somebody had told me.
And that's really good for students to know if they know that they're going to go on and do a PhD.
Yeah.
If they're still uncertain about what they're going to do, then it'd be probably hard to get the funding in the first place.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, big one.
Okay, so not only are you about to finish your postgraduate work, but you're really coming to the end of your entire educational pathway. So looking back more long-term at your education, were there any big lessons that you would learn? Again, any bits of wisdom that would be good to pass on to those in the thick of it?
I do feel like there's an underappreciation of the different levels of someone's academic journey. And I feel like there's a huge disconnect between GCSEs and A-levels and university, in the sense that at GCSEs, they're trying to prepare you to score really highly and do well, so they spoon feed you all the information. Obviously, A-level, it's slightly more, you need to think for yourself now, but they still hold your hand through the whole process. And then you come to university expecting somebody to be holding your hand and, making you study and in certain study periods, and there's just none of that. And that happens at undergraduate level. So you suddenly go from this support, this hand-holding, to you're on your own. Obviously, there are support services available, but it's not as widely well known about, and it's not something you have to do. It's something you choose to do. Then again, at masters, you have kind of similar contact hours, but there's more work and it's harder stuff. So you need to be doing more. When you get yourself into, a years long habit of doing things last minute, of, kind of leaving things until the last possible second, is really hard to break. And you physically cannot do that at masters and at PhD level. It is impossible. Even if you pull all-nighters consistently, it's just not doable. So just an awareness and an understanding of the journey through education and that increasing independence, and how if you take on that responsibility earlier, it makes it so much easier for you later in life, and it sets you up with those good habits.
I think habits is a big one. And one place where I see that coming into students' lives is from their first year to their second year of their undergraduate, because in the first year, the marks that they receive for their modules don't count.
Yes.
When I talk to students, a lot of them say, well, they see that as a year to get used to the lifestyle, but not necessarily to develop the good study skills that are necessary to get the marks that they want. But if someone isn't trying to get really good marks, then they're not learning all the strategies that are necessary to get good marks when they decide that they want to flip the switch on.
Absolutely.
In their second year. So I would really encourage first-year students to try to figure it out during their first year and develop good habits. Treat first year as if it does count. Yeah,
the beautiful thing about being a student is you have so much freedom. So if you are a night owl and you prefer to work at nights, obviously still go to your lectures in the day. And if you have a 9 a.m., it sucks, but you should go. But if you prefer working from, 7 p.m. to midnight, you can do that. And if you have a part-time job, you can structure your life kind of around that. So the freedom and flexibility is something that, especially in your first year, I would really recommend students to play around with and to see what works for them. I really found that I work best if I get up early in the mornings and if I go in and, kind of make myself do stuff. And it was only through trial and error of trying so many different times of, I'm going to go in at 10, I'm going to go in at 2, I'm going to go in at 9, I'm going to go in at 7, It was only through doing that you figure out what actually works for me. And as long as that works for me and I can manage that with assignments and exams, that's completely fine. I'm not saying become nocturnal, because when it comes to exams, you will really, really struggle.
Yeah.
But if you do prefer a bit more flexibility, you can completely do that. So really make the most of it and run with it and figure out different revising methods, figure out different strategies for how you're going to plan your week and plan your life.
Always be trying to scheme. How are you going to continue to do your job better and better?
One other thing as well, with our subject psychology, it is such a beautifully applicable subject in that psychology is in everything. And there's literally a module on learning to learn. How do people learn? How do people retain information? Use the knowledge that you learn. You learn about conditioning, you learn about association. I would have a certain flavor gum that I would chew as I was revising for different topics. So like attractiveness was strawberry and, research methods was peppermint. And you chew that gum when you're studying it. And then you chew the gum before the exam and in the exam if they let you have gum. And those things, they do help by association. Yeah. You get the knowledge that you've learned. So use the knowledge that you're learning. Honestly, the unique thing to psychology, no other subject can really say that. And we actually get to use that knowledge and we get to apply it. And it just makes it feel more fun. It makes it feel more real.
Yeah. I had a similar experience with, I can't remember everything that I'd learned that I applied, but I remember reading, I think this was an introductory to psychology, my very first semester of university, that when you're reading, you tend to remember the first thing that you read and the last thing that you read better than the bits in the middle. And so if you take lots of little breaks, there's lots of first and lasts. And so there's more things that are going to be memorable to you. So I do remember sitting in the residence halls, I would read for 10 minutes and then I go down the hallway and talk to somebody for 2 minutes and then come back and do that for a while.
Exactly. We're social creatures and, we still need to meet our needs so that we can be on tip-top form when it comes to, that's why I always say like literally just eating 5 fruits and veg a day. Like so many small things that it really makes a big difference to just your university experience and your general happiness too, because we all like people. We all want to, not feel lonely and we all want to kind of have friends.
Yeah, that's great. This has all been good, Laura. Thank you for spending the time to talk with me today. I really appreciate it. And good luck as you start with your new job.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure to be here.
A big thanks to Laura for coming on the podcast. Many thanks to Lucas Bland, James McDonald, Aranza Novella Franco for their assistance in the podcast studio. The music was written by Scott Peterson and performed by the Iowa State Drumline.